Thank you, sir. Thank you, Naren, sir. Isham, and welcome all the participants. Good afternoon, friends. This is everyone is a lockdown due to the COVID-19, and this is a we can say that everything has both the sides, plus and minus. So people have a lot of opportunity of learning and do the things which was left in the normal day of the professional lives. So before wasting of time, I will come to the topic that is a CFSS scheme. Let me open the.
You can do screen sharing.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah. Is it available to all?
No, we are not able to see.
Just a minute. Just a minute. I have just said that Sam is coming.
No, Bhaiya, it's not coming right now. You can stop once and then.
Okay. Now?
No, we are not able to do.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
Yes, now it is visible. Yeah.
So this is the coming companies. We will cover first companies fresh start scheme, then the LLP settlement scheme, and the modified LLP settlement scheme. As the intent of this scheme is very noble and to help the corporates and professionals in a big way. But as the saying goes on, devil lies in detail. So with this scheme comes with a lot of riders, which as a professional we should be aware of it, how this scheme can be utilized, and what are the companies which is still outside the scope of the CFSS scheme. Okay, and before that, there is a lot of famous sayings: in learning you will teach, and in teaching you will learn. So this is with the two-way process. Friends, please note down your questions. We will take the questions after 45 minutes when the chat box will be open, and we will go with the entire questions. And that will be definitely the learning process in both the way. I will get interested with your questions, and I'm trying to explain and discuss the certain salient features of this scheme. First, the LLP settlement scheme came, and after that, Ministry has decided to come with the CFSS scheme as well as the modified LLP scheme. And there was a lot of saying whether this is the outcome of the COVID-19, but the kind of the preparations and planning goes on. I believe that was pre-decided to come with this scheme, and COVID-19 is just a coincidence, but definitely it is going to help the corporates in a big way. Friends, the biggest issues which we face, that is the per day penalty features in the annual filing, and sometimes it goes into the lakhs. Even the companies which have been a strike off, if they get revived, they before this scheme they used to pay rupees in lakhs as an additional fees to the ministry, and as well as they have to face the prosecutions in the section 403 and lot of the other legal obligations. We will discuss that. Now I will go into the broad provisions of the scheme. First is, for CFSS, MCA issued two circular number 11 of 2020 dated 24th March and circular number 12/2020 dated 30th March. These are the two important circulars regarding the CFSS scheme, Companies Fresh Start Scheme, and the corresponding sections will be the section 460 and 403 of the Companies Act. These are the legal framework that is backing the scheme. Again, I'm repeating it. That is a MCA circular number 12 and 11 of 2020 dated 24th March and 30th March. For LLP settlement scheme, friends, the MCA circular number in a first circular number was 6 of 2020, 4th March 2020, and modified settlement scheme, that circular is 13/2020 dated 30th March. These are the legal framework that is covering both the schemes, that is a company law, company fresh start scheme and LLP settlement scheme. Now I'm coming, what is the basic objective of the first CFSS scheme? I'm reading from the circular. This scheme is aimed to facilitate the companies registered in India to make a fresh start on a clean slate. I have highlighted and underlined the companies registered in India. There is a lot of questions coming out whether the foreign companies are covered or not under the scheme. Friends, please note that even the foreign companies still they are incorporated outside India, but they have to register in India. Therefore, both the companies, whether it is an Indian company, whether incorporated in India, as well as the foreign companies which is incorporated outside India, having a place of business India in the form of branch office, liaison office, or project office, they can also avail the scheme. That means it is available to both companies registered under the Companies Act as well as the foreign companies. So there is a lot of confusion among the stakeholders whether the foreign companies will be covered or not, and even the MCA has clarified, and in the forms notified by the ministry, all the FC1, 2, 3, 4, the forms related to the foreign companies are covered. So that means it is covered both the Indian company as well as the foreign companies. That means which is having a place of business in India. Another point is that the scheme aims to condoning the delay. It is not diluting the substantive provisions of any provision. It is not concerned with the exempting or condoning the non-compliances of any substantive provision. It is only very specifically relates with the condonation of delay in filing of documents. That's it. Very simple, straight line. In certain forms, that means it is not covering the entire documents. There is a list given in the ministry's website portal. There is a 76, including company and LLP. There is 76 forms which is notified by the ministry, which will covered under the scheme, and only these 76 documents and forms will get the benefit of the schemes. Stakeholders, companies can benefit out of these 76 forms only, without payment of any additional fees. That means you have to pay normal fees, whatever as per the thrice capital 500, 600, whatever with the respective forms. That normal fees you have to pay. Ministry is only waiving the additional fees. That is very, very important thing, because in case of annual filing, annual return and AOC4, the additional fees as a per day, and there is no maximum limit. It goes into lakhs. That is a big relief available to the companies. And after that, ministry will give the immunity certificate to the concerned corporate. Friends, be careful. This scheme is only available to the companies. It is not available to their officers or KMP, like the concerned directors, company secretary, chief financial officers. If there is certain defaults on their part, they are not eligible to avail the benefits of the scheme. It is only simply the company concerned which is eligible to get the benefits under the scheme. Immunity certificate will be only with respect to the delay in filing of documents. It is not going to give the immunity with respect to any prosecutions, which is a very substantive provision. Ministry in its circular has given the example of the form P pass 3. As you know that, as per the amendment in the Companies Act 2017, if there is any share application money coming into the company's bank account, in such situation, company is required to do the ROC compliances, that is, do the allotment and file the form pass 3. And after the filing of the pass 3, that amount can be utilized by the company. This is the substantive provision. We have to file the pass 3 within 30 days. Suppose if the company does not file the form within 30 days, now it is more than 300 days or something like that. Now the company will get the benefit of the condonation of delay in the filing of pass 3. That means the additional fees which was earlier is applicable to company will not be paid by the company. That is a very big benefit available to the company. But the default, substantive default, why the corporate have used the share application money before filing of the pass 3, it is still pending against the company, and the appropriate proceedings and prosecutions will be taken by the department. So we should be very, very careful. CFSS scheme is not going to give immunity with respect to default in substantive provision. It is going to give the exemptions or immunity with respect to only that is the any default, any delay on account of filing of forms or documents with the ministry. I hope I'm clear. If there is any questions, we will do in the during our FAQ sessions. I'm now coming to the next point. Validity of the scheme. A scheme is valid from 1st April to 31st December 2020. Be careful, friends. The immunity provision, which I have already discussed, that will you can apply after the closure of the scheme, and you can file up to 6 months after the closure of the schemes. That means you can get the benefit up to the 31st September, and from 1st October 2020 onwards up to 31st March 2021, you can apply in a separate form to be deployed by the ministry. That is the CFSS 2020. There is no fees on this form. This form will be only to get the immunity if you have done the compliances during the CFSS scheme. So you can say that there is a two part of this scheme. First part, up to the 31st September, you can do the all pending compliances, which is a filing of forms, that is 76 forms, which is notified by the ministry, and there is no limit on the previous years. It can be up to 1990, 2006, 2010, n number of forms and n number of years. That means ministry is keeping that in open. There is no restrictions. You can only file 5 forms or 6 forms, something, nothing. Ministry is very open regarding the number of the forms and number of the year up to which you can file the form and get the benefit. Second part of this scheme, that will start from 1st October 2020 and it will on 31st March 2021. That is the time limit to get the immunity by filing the form CFSS 2020. So don't get confused. The scheme will be only up to 31st September. 31st September is time to do the compliances. And after 31st September, that is from 1st October 2020 to 31st March 2021 is the time to get the immunity after doing such compliances. Now there is a definition clause as given in the scheme, and the most important definition is the definition of the defaulting company. Other definitions is I think already defined in the Companies Act. There is no such requirement to do again defined in the scheme, but as the ministry has defined, there is no problem. And except that defaulting company, the definitions are the act, company, designated authority, immunity certificate, and inactive company. You know that act is defined, company is defined, inactive company is defined. Designated authority means, friend, here the ROC, and in immunity certificate that will be given in after the filing of the CFS 2020. So I will discuss the definition of the defaulting company. Defaulting company, it means a company defined under the Companies Act. This is a theoretical point I am discussing, and which has made default in filing of any document, statements, returns, etc., including annual statutory documents and report. The definition is very, very wide, but practicality, if you go by that means company defined under the Companies Act. I will come into this point, that is very, very technicalities involved. And second point is which has made default in filing of any document. Any document means, friend, here as per the Companies Act, it will be 64 documents. Okay, 54 documents under the Companies Act 2013 and 10 documents under the Companies Act 1956. Any means does not mean we have to get all the forms and all the returns. It is if you can note it down, any means that is 64 documents, 54 under the Companies Act 2013 and 10 forms under the Companies Act 1956. And it means company defined under the Companies Act. A lot of questions coming under this point. What will happen? Whether the strike of companies will get the benefit, or the companies which is active non-compliant, or directors are KYC non-compliant, whether such companies are eligible or not. We will discuss later on what are the basic features, which companies can come, which companies cannot come under the ambit of this scheme. Now coming to applicability, any defaulting company is permitted to file the belated documents. Any company, which means private, public, Nidhi, Section 8 company, whatever kind of companies we are having under the Companies Act, all kind of companies having the benefit to get to avail the benefit of this scheme. Now I'm discussing the practical point. The ministry has very much clarified the precondition for availing the benefit of this scheme is that the SIN number of your company must be active. If the SIN number is not active, you are not able to get the benefit of this scheme. What is the meaning of this thing? That means if company is striked off, under the process of strike off, such companies are outside the ambit of this scheme. I have already told, devil lies in detail, because huge number of companies which are pending for revival and still not pending but already striked off by the ministry, such companies are outside the ambit of this scheme because their SIN number is not active, and therefore what is the process for them to get that benefit? First they have to go to NCLT, get the revival order, and then they can get the benefit of the scheme. Suppose, for example, a company which has get the revival order on 15th March, for example, and such company has not done the compliances for last 3 years. Now such company is a very good point to get the benefit of the scheme, because they are not required to file any, they are not required to pay any additional fees on the filings done by them to get the compliant. Even the company which is active, but active non-compliant, that is, a company has not filed the active form, INC 22A. Such companies are also not able to get the benefit of the scheme. First, you have to do your INC 22A compliances, active form. First, file the active form, get it properly active, and then you can go and get the benefit of the scheme. Even your company is active, but all the directors have not completed their DR3 KYC form. That is their directors KYC is not done. Even in such situation, company is not able to get the benefit of the schemes. In nutshell, there is 3 preconditions. SIN number should be active, director KYC should be done, and company's KYC should be done. If all 3 conditions are done, that means your company's SIN number is active, and then you are eligible to get the benefit of the scheme. The meaning of any company means active company, that whose SIN number is active and there is no problem regarding the filing of active form or DR3 KYC. Even the scheme provides that if you do the compliance of active, you don't need to pay any additional fees. Okay? Like it was a 10,000, 5,000 in case of the DR3 KYC or active KYC. That fees we are getting exempted. But you have to do the compliances before taking the benefit of the scheme. This is a very, very technical point, and a lot of, I think, will help the members. You first do the active compliances or directors compliances and get the SIN number of the company active, and then go for the CFSS scheme. Next point is that I think this point is discussed. Next is coming immunity provisions, which I've already discussed, but I'm again reiterating for the benefit of the participants. Friends, the scheme is giving immunity only on account of, I think my screen is available to all the participants, only on account of delay in filing of documents. It is not giving immunity on account of default of any substantive provision of that, which we have discussed. That means people are having a lot of misconceptions that this scheme will make the word clean slate is very, very confusing. A lot of members are so think that the word clean slate means all the defaults in the past will be condoned by the ministry and no actions will be taken. That is I think, misconceptions. Friends, keep in mind, only default on account of delay in filing of documents will give the benefit. But any substantive provision, director disqualification. A lot of people have called me whether the director disqualification will be removed if we go to get the benefits of the scheme. The first point is the scheme is only for the companies, not for directors. Okay, so if even the company do all the compliances, that is not going to remove the disqualification of the directors. The directors has to go to the High Court and do the normal legal procedures for the removal of disqualification. A scheme is not going to help such person. Okay. Next point is that before immunity provisions, I have told that after the closure of the scheme, one form will be deployed, CFS 2020. That form will be filed by the concerned corporate, and the ministry will issue the immunity certificate with respect to the delay in filing of certain forms. But before that, if the company has filed any appeal or any proceedings before any judicial authority or tribunal, in this situation, company has to withdraw such appeals or proceedings before getting the immunity certificate. That means if there is a certain problem where there is litigation going on due to an account of delay in filing of documents, then concerned company has to withdraw such appeals and then they can file for the, they can do the filing. This is the second part of the scheme, that is to get the immunity certificate. Filing is one part that is available up to 31st September. After 31st September, you can go for the immunity. For getting immunity, you have to withdraw your appeals. For doing filing, no need to file, don't worry, just go and file the forms and documents, and appeal provision will be taken care of later on. Next point is that I have already discussed that the form CFS will have no fees. It will be completely free form. There will be no fees applicable on this form, and it will be after the closure of a scheme, that is after 31st September. That means 1st October 2020 to, that is 6 months. The time frame is given 31st March 2021. Another point is that no immunity shall be given in the matter of any appeal pending before the court of law in case of management dispute pending before the court. If there is any management dispute like operation mismanagement going on before the NCLT or NCLAT, in such situation, whatever the situation, immunity will not be given by the department. And no immunity shall be given in case of any court has ordered any conviction in the matter. I have already told, if the court is convicting any person, that is a default of any substantive provision. The scheme is not going to help us in case of the default of substantive provision. A scheme is only on account of delay in filing of documents and nothing more. And there is another point regarding adjudication, section 454 of the Companies Act. Friends, you know that if there is any default, we can go for the adjudication. What is the process of adjudication? First, we file the adjudication. Adjudicating authority, that is ROC, give their order. And if you're not agreed with the order of the adjudicating authority, we can go appeal to the regional director. That is a simple process. The scheme says that if we have filed the adjudication, order has come, but appeal period has not been finished. The 60 days time period is for the appeal, and that is falling between the 1st March to 30th March. Being specific COVID provisions has been made. Then from respective date, concerned corporate will get additional 120 days to make the appeal to the regional director. Okay. I will come into the practical part. For example, if your order was passed on 15th January, for example, from 60 days, that is 15th February, 15th March. Your appeal period is ending between 1st March to 30th March. Now you will get additional 120 days from 15th March, that is 15th April, 15th May, 15th June, 15th July. You can make an appeal to the regional director up to the 15th July and get the order from the regional director, and you go for the CFS scheme. That is an interesting point available to the corporates regarding the if there is an appeal pending from the order of the adjudicating officer before to the regional director. I'm reading for the benefit of all the participants once again. If the due date for filing appeal against the order of the adjudicating authority is between 1st March 2020 to 31st March 2020, then such companies will get an additional 120 days from the respective dates to make an appeal before the consent. For example, if the due date for filing of appeal was 15th March, then additional period of 120 days will be calculated from 15th March. And if the due date for filing appeal was 20th March, then additional period of 120 days will be calculated from 20th March 2020. There are certain exemptions available. That is certain companies where the scheme is not be available at all, and they have to go with the normal procedures. The scheme is not going to help in such matter. The first point is that in case of those companies against which final notice for the strike off is already issued. If the company's final notice is already issued by the designated authority under section 248. Here, very interesting point. Even the company is not final notice is not issued, but if the SIN number is under the process of a strike off, sometimes department what do before issue of the final notice, they change the status of the SIN number that is under the process of a strike off. In this situation, there will be a lot of problems because the provision If the final notice is issued for a strike off, then company is not able to get the benefit of the CFS scheme. But sometimes it may happen the status of the sin is active, and if the status is active, you are not going to take the benefit of the scheme. Therefore, you have to be very careful and to take the benefit of the scheme. Next point is that companies which have been amalgamated under the scheme of arrangement, you know that if the scheme is a merger scheme, then transferred company status will change from the active company to amalgamated company. If there was any default in filing documents with such companies in the past, suppose company got merged in 2015, company A with the company B is continuing, but the status of the company is amalgamated with effect from 2015. But their company A did not file some documents 2010. In such situation, company A will not get the benefit of this scheme. Because in this situation, company has to be the SIN number has to be the active. In case of amalgamated company, this is not the case. Therefore, the company is not going to get the benefit. I'm sharing one of my personal experience that is very interesting, where the company merged with another company. But technically, somehow they have filed the form also, but ROC did not change their SIN number from active to amalgamated. And after 5 years, due to this simple normal technical default, directors got disqualified, and a lot of problems the concerned person has to face it without any fault. We have to be very careful. If the scheme is approved, it is our as a professional responsibility to ensure that SIN number of the concerned company and the status of the concerned company should change from active to amalgamated. Otherwise, in future there may be a lot of problems. Next point is that whether the application is made for obtaining dormant status. Friends, I will discuss in after some few slides what is the basic provision available to the dormant companies. Vanishing companies, friends, and I think a lot of friends are aware of what is a vanishing companies. Vanishing companies is basically the earlier which is a listed companies, but that is a registered under the Companies Act, listed companies, but basically they are not traceable. Their registered office is closed, directors are not traceable. In such situation, MCA regularly update their list of the vanishing companies. If your name is appears under the vanishing companies, then company is not going to take the benefit of the scheme. And finally, there is very interesting exceptions carved out of the Companies Act. That is any charge related forms. That is CHG1, CHG4, CHG8 and CHG9 and form SF7. There are two aspects. One is a charge related documents, that is and other is a increase in the share capital. A lot of friends have called me why these two forms have been excluded out of the scheme. What is the big impact? Yeah, what is a big concern? If a ministry can condone the 76 forms, what is the problem in condoning the remaining 5-6 more forms? But friends, these forms is going to have the substantive impact on the interest of the other stakeholders. Therefore, the ministry has kept them out of the CFSS 2020. For example, if the charge is registered, the status of the creditor is secured. And if the charge is not registered, the status of the creditor is unsecured. And if such companies go into liquidation, then IBC in waterfall mechanism, their ladder is going to change. If charge is registered, they are getting to the priority over the other creditors. If they are not getting registered, their status will come down and they will get the benefit as an unsecured financial creditor. So this registration things is going to have the huge impact over the rights of the creditors, secured versus unsecured, under the other legislation like the IBC, and it is going to impact the substantive rights of the members, and lot of the schemes, resolution schemes under the CRP is going to be impacted, and we can open the Pandora box for the litigations. Therefore, the ministry wisely have considered and to exclude these forms out of the scope of the CFSS. Because if these forms will be included, definitely believe me, there is going to be the thousands of litigations. That means every scheme, every CRP process, there will be certain dispute regarding on this front. Therefore, the ministry, we should be credit to the ministry for carving out the charge forms out of the scheme. Second point, why the form SF7 has been excluded out of this scheme. because we know that SS7 also sometimes it enhances the stamp duty, and the stamp duty is a matter of the state governments, state jurisdictions. Therefore, the central government can exempt their fees, but not the stamp duties. So these two forms, that is authorized capital and charge related documents, have been exempted. Yeah, they are not, such forms are not eligible to get filed under the CFSS scheme. And this is going to be, I think, in charge. Lot of practical implications have been there, and ministry is dealing it very differently. Therefore, forms, be careful. Charge forms and SS7 is outside the scope of the CFSS 2020. Next, I'm coming. We have the sort of time. A scheme for inactive companies. You know that, friends, there is a section 455 of the Companies Act, which explain what is the meaning of the inactive company. Basically, the company which have no significant accounting transactions and have not filed the documents for last 2 years, they are classified as an inactive company. If the companies are inactive companies, the CFSS provide two options to such companies. Inactive companies have two options: either to apply the form MSC1 and get the status of the dormant company, or apply form STK2 and get it strike off voluntarily. Okay. The point is that ministry does not want the inactive company. Either be the dormant or get the status of the strike off done out of this register of members of the ROC. These are the two interesting options available to the inactive companies, and go through your client list and go through the companies which are not having significant accounting transactions and not filing the proper documents. Such companies should be get the benefit of this scheme. Another point which come to my mind is that the scheme is not going to, what we expecting the scheme is going to be the helping the mass companies, a lot of companies. That is not going to happen, because now the ministry is very particular. After 2 years failure in the filing, they are going for the striking off. And in very few cases, if the company is having charge or something other which could not be strike off, okay, only such companies get the benefit. Otherwise, if you fail to file annual documents for 2 years and the companies get the strike off, straightforward. In such situations, such companies are already out of the scope of the CFSS scheme. Number is very low, and we should be very, very careful regarding this. Now I'm coming to the forms. There is a 64 forms under both the Companies Act, the Companies Act 1956 and the Companies Act 2013. 54 forms from the Companies Act 2013 and 10 forms of the 1956 Act, and 12 forms under the LLP Act. Okay, that we will discuss later on. So this is the interesting point. 64 more. If anyone say what is applicability of the scheme, the scheme is available only up to 64 forms as notified by the ministry. Details of the forms is already available at the ministry portal, and friends, you can access that. I think we no need to go into each and respective forms. I have already explained that. Forms covered under the CFSS, 10 forms of the Companies Act 13. These are the forms I have given. These are the basic things about the CFSS scheme. And now we will move on to the LLP settlement scheme. I hope you have noted down your questions. We will take the questions during the Q&A session. I'm coming. There was a lot of confusion. First, the ministry has notified on the LLP settlement scheme 2020, and later on they have amended certain portion of that scheme and come out with the modified LLP settlement scheme. So I will discuss the concern point of both together, and wherever there is a changes from the brought by the modified settlement scheme into the LLP settlement scheme, I will be highlighting at the same time for the benefit of the participants. The modified scheme is effective from 1st April to 31st September. That is it is coinciding with the time period of the CFSS scheme. Fresh start scheme and company law settlement scheme now both have the same time period. Again, what is happening? The time period for LLP settlement scheme was from 16th March to 13th June. Modified scheme is going to change this time limit. Now both the scheme of the companies and for the LP have the same time limit, that is 1st April to 30th September. Again, the language is here. Any defaulting LLP is permitted to file the belated documents. There is one point in LLP, there is no concept of a strike off LLP. That is a different point. There is no corresponding section 248 in LLP Act. Therefore, you are not going to have such problem which you are going to get in the companies if they are the strike off. Belated documents, that is 12 forms notified by the ministry, which will get the benefit of the scheme. Here the term belated documents means all the documents are from which, that's fine. This is a very interesting point. In the initial scheme, only 4 forms was covered. That is form 3, 4, 8 and 11. But the modified scheme enhances the scope and covered 12 forms under its ambit, which is available as per in the ministry website, which are the forms which will get the benefit of the scheme. This is a very interesting point. And I think every person who has participated should take it note out of it. The due date for the event should be latest by 31st August. As the scheme is from 1st April to 30th September. But the event on account of which the filing is due should not be after 31st August. That is a very, very interesting point. For example, if you do the agreement on 5th September, LLP agreement, 5th September 2020, whether we will get the benefit of this scheme? Answer is no. The scheme should be maximum. LLP agreement should be executed maximum by 31st August. If anything done beyond that, filing can be done up to 30th September, no doubt. But the event on account of which filing is due, that should not fall after 31st August. I'm reading the exact point. The defaulting LLP can file the belated documents which are due for filing till 31st August 2020. Event date cannot be after 31st August, and filing can be done up to 30th September. This is a very, very interesting point. There is no such thing in companies. In companies CFSS scheme, there is no, you can go, event date can be up to the 29th September or 30th September. But in LLP, the event date is 31st August, uske beyond nahi ho sakta. That is the maximum time limit, but filing on account of such event can be done up to the 30th September. If the LLP has filed form LLP 24 for the striking of its name voluntarily, then such LLP cannot claim the benefit of the LLP settlement scheme or modified settlement scheme. So this is the basic highlighted portion of the LLP settlement scheme and companies start scheme. Now I can. Sam, if we can open the chat box, we can take the questions.
Yes. You can open Anil, where there are the questions are posted there.
Otherwise, we can go for the winding up, or we can get the questions.
Like first, winding up will complete, then we'll take the questions at once.
I think, but the questions will be very good for the members because it will be the very updated in their minds. If someone has not taken the questions,
there are only 4 or 5 questions. I think questions can be taken up thereafter we proceed. Till now, there are about 4 or 5 questions only.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that.
Yeah, you can stop screen sharing and then again share so that the new slide can be.
Okay. I have paused the share.
No, you just
stop share. Stop. Yeah, fine.
Again.
Okay.
You can share it again. It's not visible now.
I'm coming to the questions. Okay. One by one.
Do you have any PowerPoint for winding up?
Yeah, I have the PowerPoint.
So first show that, then we'll take up the questions.
Okay. It's coming? Winding up?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. Friends, as winding up is very huge and big topic, I will be very confined to the basic features because there is a lot of confusion among the participants and the professionals because we are getting totally confused whether the winding up will be under the Companies Act or under the IBC and a lot of things. I'm trying to get at the clarity at the very basic level, how it is going to, it is different from the winding up under the Companies Act or the liquidation under the IBC. Before that, this is a slide. What was the situation in Companies Act 1956? What was the situation in Companies Act 2013 before IBC? And what is the actual situation today? Under the Companies Act 1956, we know that there was two kind of the basic winding up, that is a compulsory winding up and the voluntary winding up. Under the voluntary winding up, there was a situation of the members voluntary winding up and creditors voluntary winding up. In this kind of situation, and sometimes even the court go order for the winding up of the companies. These are the three modes we can show in the PPT. By the court, compulsory winding up, voluntary winding up under the, and then it is a members winding up and creditors voluntary winding up. Very interesting change which is brought about by the Companies Act 2013 along with the IBC. Friends, keep in mind, there is no such things today that is called members voluntary winding up and creditors voluntary winding up. That is only the voluntary winding up. In every voluntary winding up, you need to take the approval of the members and creditors. Therefore, the distinction which was earlier available in 1956, that is a members voluntary winding up and creditors voluntary winding up, is no more practical now. It's only the voluntary winding up, and that's it. Because every voluntary winding up today needs the approval of the member as well as the creditors. Now the question arises, under which kind of liquidation or winding up Companies Act will come into picture and when it will come into the picture of IBC. Friends, keep in mind that I'm coming directly to the IBC first. If the companies goes for CIRP, if there is no resolution plan and CIRP period of 180 days or 270 days expired, the company automatically goes for the liquidation. We can call it the compulsory liquidation for the sake of saying it. And under section 59 of the IBC, companies can go for inability to pay debt directly to the NCLT for winding up. That is called voluntary liquidation. There is 2 points. One, liquidation arising out of failure of the CIRP process. That is we call liquidation. And IBBI has notified the IBBI liquidation process regulation 2016 for this kind of liquidation. And another mechanism is available under section 59 of the IBC, that is a voluntary liquidation. And for that, the process is available. That is called as a IBBI voluntary liquidation process, that regulations 2017. Be careful, for the liquidation on account of CIRP, we have the regulation 2016. And liquidation, voluntary liquidation, we have the regulation 2017. A lot of people get confused between these two. They use the 2017 regulation sometimes in the CIRP liquidation, and in voluntary liquidation, they use the 2016. There should be very, very clear point for liquidation after CIRP, regulation number 2016, and for voluntary liquidation, IBBI voluntary liquidation process regulation 2017. And coming, recently Ministry of Corporate Affairs has come out with the winding up rules 2020. and that is also applicable from 1st April 2020. So that is also brought about a lot of confusion among the members. If there is already liquidation under IBC, then what is all about this winding up rules, which is notified by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs? Friends, there is a lot of other grounds also on which company can be wound up, and Section 271 of the Companies Act. That grounds are covered by the winding up rules. Like inability to pay debt, that is covered under the IBC. I'm reading from my chart. Inability to pay debt is now subject to IBC. Further, voluntary liquidation is completely governed by the IBC. Companies Act, after the introduction of the IBC, no voluntary liquidation under the Companies Act. Be careful. Entire voluntary liquidation mechanism will be governed by IBC Section 59. Companies Act will cover only the compulsory winding up, only that too on certain specified grounds, which I will discuss later on. Coming on to the point, broad provisions, we can say that Chapter 20 of the Companies Act. Before reading of the winding up provisions, I would already request friend to refer to Section 255 of the IBC, because that section is going to change a lot of provisions of the Companies Act. If you're reading only the Companies Act without referring to Section 255, you will get confused. So first point, reading the winding up provisions under the companies, to refer to the Section 255 of the IBC, and then go to the winding up provisions of the Companies Act. We have the part 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm skipping it, just that we don't have the time. I'm coming the basic features. Now we can see that winding up by tribunal, that is this is the winding up under the Companies Act. We are not going to discuss the winding up under the IBC. I'm just confining myself only the winding up under the Companies Act, Section 271. I'm not discussing the liquidation after the CRP or voluntary liquidation under Section 59. That is a separate topic, and we will later on sometimes we will discuss it. I'm now only confining up to the winding up rules 2020. Yeah, I'm coming that. Grounds of winding up under Companies Act 2030, Section 271, sorry. First point is that a special resolution passed by the company. Any company can go for the winding up by ISR, they can go for the winding up. Company has acted against the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India. This is the new point. If any company which is acting against the country, suppose if you are running in India and helping for enemy country and something other which is not in the security and integrity of the nations, then the government can order for the winding up of such companies. An application made by ROC, tribunal is of the view that the affairs of the company are fraudulent. If ROC after inspection finds that affairs of the company are fraudulent, then the ROC can make an application to the tribunal NCLT for the winding up of the company. If the default in filing financials with ROC for consecutive 5 years, if the ROC has, but a very interesting point is that after 2 years, if there is no filing, company got a strike off. And here the point is that if the company failed to file any financials after 5 years, so friends, this is a very interesting point. If your company is not a strike off, still active, but filing is not done, then you can take the CFSS scheme. Otherwise, ministry can invoke this provision also for the winding up of the company. And friends, keep in mind, even the strike of companies can be wound up under Section 248, subsection 8 of the Companies Act. And last point is, if it is just and liquidable, then the NCLT may go for the winding up of the company. These are the 5 grounds which is covered under Section 271, which specifies under which the companies can be wound up. And for this, respective rules is a winding up rules 2020. Now I'm coming again, who can make an applications? That is, if the company is going for winding up by passing a special resolution, then it must be accompanied by a statement of affairs. All or any contributor, and criteria is already specified, registrar or any person authorized by the central government. So friends, again, I am highlighting the point because we have the less time and we will go for the Q and answer. Keep in mind, there is 2 types of liquidation under the IBC. One is on account of CIRP and another is a voluntary liquidation. For CIRP, the section after the 33 and all the provisions, and that will waterfall mechanism will be applicable and all the respective IBC provisions. Section 59 of the IBC is dealing with the voluntary liquidation, IBBI has framed two regulations. IBBI liquidation proceedings regulation 2016 for the liquidation arising on account of the CIRP, and voluntary liquidation, IBBI voluntary liquidation process regulations 2017. And there are other grounds on which the company can be wound up under the Companies Act, that is section 271. These are the 5 grounds which I've just mentioned, and Ministry of Corporate Affairs have the jurisdiction for such winding up. In both the cases, NCLT will be the adjudicating authority, and on certain grounds, company itself or the tribunal or the contributors can apply to the tribunal for the winding up of the company. So there should be this conceptual clarity. I think like time is less, so we can't move further because it's a huge topic. Sam, we can open the Q&A answer for the members.
Yes, President, we can open the Q&A session.
Okay, let me stop it.
Sure.
Anilbhai, there was a question from Runit Harlalka ji. He wanted slide number 18 of your previous presentation. Can you show it once?
Yeah, just slide number 8.
18.
Okay. These were the forms, Runit ji, under the Companies Act. Okay, I have not given all the forms to save the time because all the forms are available under in the ministry. Okay. That is
so can we just see that form once, that slide once, if you can just show it?
Yeah, this is the. Are you getting or not?
No, you can stop screen sharing and share it again.
Just a minute. Yeah. Are you getting it, Runit ji?
Yes.
These are basically the forms notified under the Companies Act 1956. I have not discussed the forms because time was less. There are 76 such forms. If you show, I can show the list also.
No, that's fine, sir. I was just missing that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bhaiya, we can start with the questions. You can take in from the chat box one by one.
Yeah. Please, I'm taking. This is the questions of coming one by one. Yeah, Narendra Goyalji. Company which was offered to strike off in CLSS 2007, they were struck off on MCA. But while reviving some stock of companies last year, suddenly this company becomes live and presently showing as defaulter since 2008. Management does not have any paper of CLSS or any paper they offer. What is the remedy? So if the present situation is that company is active, their SIN number is active, you can go and file.
Yes, it is showing active.
Then you go and file the form and get the benefit of the scheme. So
no, but how to file?
Hello?
No, but how to file? Because the company does not have any paper. In fact, it was struck off. It was already struck off once. Voluntary CLSS scheme, the management had offered it for strike off. And that time the strike off was successful. The company was not showing on MCA.
Then my point is that, sir, in such situation, go to the.
Can they simply file nil returns?
No.
Just to get rid of the problem.
No, sir. If already the company has applied for the strike off under the CLSS 2007, that means company has taken all the actions to get a strike off. Then contact the concerned ROC and they get the status be strike off. Okay. Then don't go for the filing options. Okay. Then filing is not advisable in such situation.
Hello. I can hear you. But slightly disturbing, but I can hear you.
I think, sir, in that situation, please get to the concerned ROC and get the status changed. No need to file the fresh documents. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Next question is Runit ji. Sir, during the process, this is very often forms. Yeah, Runit, I have already told this form is not going to be charge forms and SS7 is not covered, and I have given the explanation for the same also. Why these two forms have been excluded out of this scheme. I hope you are okay with this. Runit ji.
Runit ji, you can unmute if you want. Okay, we can go ahead.
Yeah.
Shyam, please unmute him.
Runit
Because
ji.
he might not be listening to you.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Runit
Anil ji,
ji,
can you just repeat that answer, whatever you said?
your question is that why the CH charge related forms and SS7 is excluded. Okay.
Right.
I have given the explanation, sir, why these two forms have been excluded, okay, out of this scheme. Okay, because they
So-
are going. Yeah.
Well, my question is related to the DIR3 KYC.
Yeah.
The last year, wherein some of the directors had missed filing that forms on time,
Yeah.
and they had to pay the additional fees to get it reactivated.
Yeah.
Now with this immunity, I mean, rather this CFSS scheme coming up, what will happen to that? I mean, is there any remedy for that we can claim that amount back?
No, sir. There will be no refund of the additional fees already paid. Okay, because the scheme is not having retrospective; it is having only the prospective effect. Okay.
Okay.
That is from 1st April. So there will be no refund of any additional fees already paid.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Next, Amit Chaudhary, whether the event date can be before 1/4/2020. Yes, definitely. Amit, if you are listening to me, definitely the event date can be any time. Okay. So even 10 years back, 20 years back, you can go and do the compliances. Okay. There is no additional fees for such event. Okay. Next is a DN Agrawal ji question. If first cause notice is issued, no final strike of notice issued, whether that company can avail of is technically 100%, sir. Such companies can avail the benefit of the CFSS scheme, but ensure that their SIN number is active. But sometimes I have discussed that ROC, even for the first notice, they go for the change in the SIN number under the process of strike off. If that is done, then technically company is not going to get the benefit. But if you go to the language of this scheme, definitely language of this scheme says so, कि only those companies in which cases the final notification out of the CFSS scheme. So in that situation, definitely we have to see the implication, how it goes on. Okay. If a company, this question is from, if a company is a strike off and directors are disqualified, is it possible to get revival and director insertion from back end within time? Yeah, if situation is that you get your company revived from NCLT, but all the directors are disqualified. In this situation, get your SIN activated, get the directors appointed through back-end process, and then get the benefit of the scheme. Okay, and this is the only mechanism available, and you have to follow the department so that the early insertion in from the back-end process could take place. Otherwise, if all the directors are disqualified, then you are not going to get the benefit of the scheme. Then Santhalia ji, so any way to wind up company where tax demand is due? Sir, this question is I think not relevant, because winding up has to be on certain grounds, not for the evading taxes and liability. Okay, if a ground exists, you can go and approach the NCLT. The only evasion of tax liability can't be the ground to wind up the company. Point is Roshan Agarwal. I have posted my question Facebook page, not able to copy the same from here. You can write again, Roshan. I will reply. Priti Agarwal, in case
Anil ji, hello. Anil bhaiya.
possible or not.
Yep.
Liquidations, the process can be reversed subject to the approval of the concerned party. Hello?
Yes.
Audio is gone.
Next point is, again, D. Agrawal ji, his question is, there are many private companies having 2 family members, shareholder director, there is no debt, share capital say 5 lakh, security premium 30 lakh, profit and loss account 5 lakh, asset side only cash and bank. What is the simple ways to close the company? So you can go for the voluntary winding up. That is the only process available. And that is simple, and it will resolve your issue. Rahul Srivastava, is only add late fees waived off in the scheme, or even penalties waived off. Only the additional fees on account of delay in filing of documents is waived off. Okay, penalty provision is not covered here, Rahul. Okay, but any penalty on account of such delay, that is definitely because you are getting to get the immunity certificate, it will not be levied. But any penalty due to the default in substantive provision, definitely that will be outside the scope of the scheme. Next is Ketan Naliazi 9. I'm not able to get his question. Rahul Srivastav again. Any litigation pending with authorities, any fresh filing of form solution, can we take benefit of this? Any litigation is pending with authorities. The scheme, again, Rahul is specifying, scheme is only for the delay in filing of documents. It is not going to alter your substantive rights and liabilities. You can file the forms. There will be no future action on delay in filing of documents, but it is not going to impact your litigation, your outcome of litigation. Rajendra ji, your question.
Yeah.
I think you're listening.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The question is that a company which was defaulted in filing since last 30 years, the paid up capital at that time, 30 years.
Okay.
Paid up capital of that at that time was 1.5 lakhs only, but subsequently there was a requirement of minimum paid up capital.
Okay.
So we have gone to NCLT. NCLT directed us to file all the documents for the reinstatement of the active status.
Okay.
But we are still unable to file the documents because as and when we are going to file those annual filing documents, they are telling that minimum paid up capital criteria is not fulfilled.
Okay.
So what is the solution under this scheme?
Okay. In that situation, now you can get the benefit of the scheme, sir. Okay, because that is a perfect case for you to go and file the documents. But in this situation, if the minimum paid up criteria is whether we have to comply or not, definitely first you have to get the minimum paid up capital. Okay, because scheme is not going to exempt you from doing the substantive compliance. You have to do the compliance. Scheme is only for if you do the compliances, and if there is a delay in filing of document, that delay is going to exempted or you're going to benefit. But if you wanted not to complete the minimum paid up capital criteria but come to the scheme, that is not possible. You have to complete the criteria of the minimum paid up capital.
But balance sheets, physical copies of all the balance sheets has been submitted before NCLT. By that capital only. So we cannot again submit the revised balance sheet with increased paid up capital. That's
Yeah. In that situation, you can from how many? 30 years.
Yeah, it's almost 30 years since 1989.
1989.
Pending. Yeah.
In that situation, you have to get the NCLT to get its accounts revised, okay, and get the necessary compliances.
So okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Then is a question.
Mr. Prabhu.
Disclosure of benefits they will file. Definitely, sir. If the company was required to file BEN, definitely you are going to get the benefit. Okay. So that is a perfect, and you can go and file the BEN form, and you will get the immunity from delay in filing of the BEN form. Next point is suppose the company has a AGM, but by mistake filed an annual return by mentioning the AGM date. Now next year, which is going to that last year the AGM was wrongly mentioned in annual forms. Now this year, all the annual forms filed got in the year 2000. There is one user has asked the questions regarding the.
This is my question. Myself, Roshan Agrawal.
That is regarding the AGM question.
Yes.
I'm coming there. So in this basic issue is that you have wrongly specified the AGM date in your form.
Yes, in the year 2016.
16. That is a substantive default. That is that is substantive. You have to get the condoned and get the compounding for the same.
Okay.
And then go for the get the benefit of the scheme. Okay.
Because the company can utilize the scheme.
First, you go and file adjudication before compounding before the department, get compounding order, and then get the benefit of this. Because the scheme is not going to.
The director can also get the benefit.
No, sir. Under the scheme, director have no benefit. Only the concerned company is eligible to get the benefit of this.
Okay, thank you.
Next is a Mukti Nayak. Status of the company is active non-compliant due to non-filing of sir, you have to first do the active compliances and then get the benefit of the scheme. Because the status of the company should be completely active. Okay. Rajiv Harlalkaji, how much time it will take for voluntary winding up? Sir, it depends upon a lot of factors, but around 1 year. Okay. Which is a practical experience. And इसके पहले भी हो सकता है, not an issue, but it will take. But I think it's out of the discussion today. Next is Rahul Srivastav. If I am processed for non-filing, prosecuted for non-filing of Form AOC4 and MGT7, will I be immune from being prosecuted under this scheme? Definitely, you do the filing and then file for the immunity certificate. Definitely, you will get the immunity if you are prosecuted for non-filing of Form AOC4 and MGT7. Definitely, this scheme is going to helpful to you. Then it's Amit for LLP, whether the due date of the form should be within 31st August 2019 or the event date should be within. First of all, event date should be not 19 but 20. It is 19 is the previous scheme, but modified scheme said the event date should be maximum by 31st August 2019, but the filing can be done up to the 30th September 2020. So 31st August 2020 is the event date and filing is the 30th September 2020. I hope I'm clear. Yeah, again Agarwal ji has rectified Amit. That's event date should be the 31st August 2020. Any other question?
Yeah, President has raised his hand. President.
Yeah, sir. Naren sir.
Yes, I have a question which I had written on the chat box. Maybe it got omitted. The question is that the company is not into business right now. It had certain business loans from financial institutions, and 2000 it settled all the. There was a settlement with the bank.
Okay.
But somehow the charge satisfaction was not done. Now on the ROC portal, it's showing charges outstanding.
Yeah.
Is there any way to go for winding up under this situation, or they have to compound the offenses for charge satisfaction and thereafter they can proceed?
In that situation, it's very simple. If you have already settled with
I clear?
Yes, you okay. I think, sir, you have already settled with the bank. Hello?
Right, and paid off.
Paid off. In that situation,
20 years
get the 20 years back. Hello?
Yes. In the year 2000.
If there is so much delay of the 20 years, in that situation, I think you go for the compounding, or you can go directly for the winding up of the companies if there is no business, voluntary liquidation.
No, there is no business. Can it go without compounding for voluntary winding up?
Yeah, definitely. You can go directly for the voluntary winding up without even going to the compounding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think everything is done. President, we can go ahead.
I think there being no other questions. Anybody, any questions? All participants, any questions?
If you want, you can unmute. If you want, you can unmute yourself and ask.
I think.
President, you are mute. President, you are mute. Just a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Anilji, for the nice deliberation. All the queries were taken up and the questions have been all sorted out. The participants have been benefited to a large extent. I request Rajesh to propose a hearty word. I request. Thank you. And Rajesh ji, please propose a word of thanks.
Am I audible, sir?
Rajesh ji, are you connected?
Yes, I am connected. Am I audible? Good evening, everyone. On behalf of DTP and myself, I thank to Sri Anil Dubey ji for giving a wonderful deliberation. I thank all the participants for joining the meeting.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.